wonder if they do sponsorships.
It's 8 o'clock, so. And everybody has heard that. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. And welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, will talk about a recent piece of nerdy entertainment in depth, which means you're going to spoil it. Hence all the warnings and so on.
It's in the name.
It's in the name, it's in the graphics, it's everywhere we can put it. This week we are spoiling the Disney Plus series Hawkeye, which just wrapped up last Wednesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter and a couple of other places, doing a bunch of other things. Joining me tonight is, wearing his fedora instead of the tam that he's been on the last couple of shows. Byron, introduce yourself.
Hello, denizens of Nerd Caliber's internet space. It is I, Byron McNeil, aka Byron D0, on multiple facets of the internet, contributing writer, content creator, and social media consultant. I also do a little bit of art. If you're on Instagram, you should check out my work. It's BD0Art. That's BDZEROART on Instagram.
There you go. And that you can tell it's the night before New Year's Eve, and it's the week in between Christmas and New Year's Eve when it takes time to remember how to spell zero.
Yes.
I'm right there with you, buddy. Right there with you.
I could write a book.
Exactly. Anyway, so we're talking about Hawkeye. If you have not seen Hawkeye and you do not like spoilers, you should probably.
What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? Please feel free to stay. But if you don't like that, I would suggest you go watch it and then come back when this is up on YouTube. After it's live.
It's only 6 episodes, right?
There are only 6 episodes. It's a pretty easy watch. They are 47 to 48 minutes each. So, interestingly enough, that is the appropriate amount of time that a 1-hour show is made to allow for commercials when it eventually goes to some sort of commercial-based,
platform.
Yeah, TBS or TNT or something. But if you have seen it, or you don't mind spoilers, hang around, ask us questions, respond to our opinions, let us know what you think. So, what is Hawkeye? It's as Byron mentioned, a 6-episode series that both tells the story of what happened to Clint Barton after the details of Avengers Endgame, and from what I've read, it's officially set 1 year after, so it's 2024. And it also tells the story of Kate Bishop, who from the comic books is also Hawkeye. And in the comics, this occurs when Hawkeye is dead for a while. It's comic book stuff. Just accept it. And so in the comics, they both wind up carrying and keeping the title of Hawkeye. The series is very much influenced, and a lot of the individual story beats and absolutely the tone and design come from the wonderful Matt Fraction, David Aja series, or run on the Hawkeye series, Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon. And that had so much humor and heart, and they really did an excellent job of keeping that feel in this series while still having to tell an MCU Phase 4 plus story.
Yeah, I first I've only skimmed through the Matt Fraction stuff, but all my friends who are who are big into modern comics cannot recommend this series enough.
Yeah, I've read the first volume, so I think it's issues 1 through 6, and they're just primo.
One thing that I really appreciate about the dynamic between both Hawkeyes is that wasn't she like the first legacy character?
legacy in the sense of
Another like two heroes taking on the same name. So
I'd
like
have.
now you got it with Kate and Clint, Miles and Peter, Steve and Sam.
I think so, but I'd have to look back into the history of comics to know whether that's definitely the case. Honestly, frankly, when you look at all of the, Spider-Man, Ben Riley Spider-Man,
Well, I mean
um,
at the same time.
yeah, that's well. Again, I don't know when any of the, Spider Verse, Madam Web stuff occurred in the comics or even in the Spider-Man cartoons, um, where they were at the same time, and whether the Spider-Man cartoons would be even be considered canon anyway. So anyway, very possibly. Um, Certainly, at the same time, in the same universe, um, and working together. Yes, in that case, absolutely. Um, all right. So, where was I? What is Hawkeye? Oh yeah, and so the series basically tells the story of Clint Barton, who's in New York with his family to see Rogers the musical, and generally have a pre-Christmas New York holiday experience, and winds up getting involved with a problem in which the Ronin suit, which he wore in Endgame, if you've seen that, where he was basically killing bad guys, hand over fist, winds up surfacing. And he sends his family home and says, I got to hang around and figure out what's going on here and clean this up. And from that, it then introduces, actually, it starts with Kate. It starts with Kate's story as a child, first seeing Clint Barton in the Battle of New York against the Chitauri, which in this universe or in the MCU sets her on the path of becoming, a martial arts expert, a archery expert, a parkour and gymnastics expert. Crazy overachiever. Um, anyway, it dropped on Disney Plus. It ran 6 episodes. It's an easy watch. You would very much want to have seen both Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame, and the Black Widow movie for it to really hit home.
Absolutely.
And spoiler chat, there's nobody else in the chat that I can see right now anyway, so it's not like I'm going to spoil this for anybody who's watching this unless you're lurking, in which case you should know that I'm going to be spoiling this. It also very much, you would benefit from having watched the Netflix Daredevil series.
Yes.
All right, so we start, as we always do, with what worked, what we liked. We then moved on to what didn't work, what we didn't like, and then theme, tone, and messages. Byron, what did you like about this?
Oh boy, put me on the spot.
I think you can probably come up with a thing or two.
You're right. Uh, there was a lot to like about this show. First and foremost, the comedy was definitely there. It never overstayed its welcome.
Yep.
Jokes hit. They were never kind of just in your like they again they didn't overstay their welcome like any of the scenes with Jack and main characters Kate, where like they had some great chemistry, and I think that was a big part due to Haley Steinfeld, who I'm going to say is probably the hardest working woman in showbiz right now.
Yeah.
She's doing voice acting for not just one but several animated projects. Um, she's a pop star, and man, she acts, and she did all this work just to get it down. It's just wow,
She
you are
she learned archery. so she could look more accurate as an archer. So yeah, hardest working.
Yes. Uh, I like the implementation of Clint's hearing impairment.
Yep.
Like they didn't make it a big thing. It was just like, oh, this is my life now.
Yep.
You kind of and the audience is kind of left to figure it, like to piece it together in their own head. It's like, how do you do it? How to have it's like he's an Avenger.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he
He's been
does
in the
mention, and almost a toss off line. It's like, hey, I'm an Avenger. Lots of explosions. I don't have superpowers, and that's it. That's
mhm.
like, oh, okay.
it. Yeah, but yeah, that's basically what it all comes down to. And it's just, yeah, Jeremy Renner definitely has like made that role his own. I love like the and going back to the chemistry again. Jeremy and Haley Steinfeld great together.
Yep.
They they felt like they could be family.
Absolutely.
Like anytime they interacted, it was like they were brother and sister, and I was totally here for that. Um, I'm so happy to see Vincent D'Onofrio back in the white suit with the cane.
And again, says right up there, kids. Can't blame us. Spoilers, spoilers,
Yep.
spoilers. In the name. Um, yes, absolutely. Even though when they finally gave us a tease of Maya's uncle, and all you see is a hand, and a
Yes.
really nice jacket suit and a white shirt sticking out with cufflinks, I'm like, yeah, okay, yep,
Mm. Ugh. Yeah, Vincent D'Onofrio gives me chills in that role,
oh yeah,
and yeah, and let's be real. There's no way they're just gonna do a one and done with him. That would be a waste of a very talented actor.
yep.
I'm sure they're probably gonna have a halfway decent explanation by the time the Echo series starts.
He's going to be a part of that. You know,
Of
um,
course.
despite super, super, super big spoilers. At the end, it's heavily implied that Maya shoots him right in the head. Um, but you don't see it on
Yep.
screen. And if Squid Game taught us anything, if you don't
Yep.
see the guy getting shot in the head, anyway.
Yep. Uh, the music choices were good all around, especially especially in the credits. Every song was like some sort of Christmassy type song.
Yep.
I forget what episode it was, but I laughed at the Sammy Davis Jr. song that they used.
I was like, wait a minute, is that Sammy? I was like, yes. Oh, that was all of the needle drops in this thing are awesome. One of the most heart wrenching moments in the whole thing is when, Clint is looking at the memorial plaque for the Battle of Chitauri, which has the name of all
Yes.
the Avengers, including Natasha Romanoff on it, and he's talking to it like he's talking to her, and they start playing Vince Guaraldi's "Christmas Time Is Here" from the Charlie Brown Christmas special, which is the saddest happy Christmas song ever freaking written. You know,
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's a Christmas song written entirely in a minor key. It's like
Yeah,
Guaraldi's a genius, but damn,
it
anyway,
invokes feelings of
it
all
invokes
kinds.
big kinds of feelings.
I don't want to be here all night, so I'll end my likes with this. Um, I like the back and forth between Yelena and just about anyone in the cast. Like Florence Pugh, like I could watch her read the phone book for an hour
Yep.
in that beautiful sultry voice of hers.
I said this about Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman when we talked about the latest Batman trailer 2 nights ago in our Nerd Week Live, is
Yes.
her line reads were really surprising that I wouldn't have thought that an actress would take it that way, but it absolutely perfectly worked. Florence Pugh does that and consistently has done that with Yelena in Black Widow and now in this appearance. There are times when she delivers a line when I kind of, for just a second, go, huh? Oh, perfect. Yep, I get it.
So macaroni is
Yeah.
very tasty.
Oh, just,
And I'm like, Kate said it best. Stop making me like you.
yes.
That was a mood. That was a mood.
Or just, and if there was ever, and give this credit to the writers, if there was ever, an indication of the difference in experience and skill level between Yelena and Kate, when Kate says, "You keep saying my whole name all the time, just to let me know that you know it, right?" And she goes, "Oh yes," like implying that she knows it, where she
Her.
lives, her entire family, like everything about her. So it's really good. All right, so you've said casting. I will add to that Vera Farmiga as Eleanor Bishop, Kate's mom, who is, big surprise, because she's a villain in the comics, is revealed as a villain in this. Again, a sympathetic villain who tries to tell her daughter that she did all of these criminal things because her late husband, Kate's late dad, was in debt up to his eyeballs to the Kingpin.
Because that worked out so well. Like that kind of logic worked out so well for Walter White.
Exactly. Um, yeah, and so yeah, and even if it started out like that, it progressed like Walter White. It's clear that she does not dislike being a villain. Um, Tony Dalton as Jack Duquesne. You know,
Yes.
I kind of get that they didn't write him as Jack Duquesne, the swordsman from the comics.
Yeah.
Pardon me, who was Clint's mentor. Um, which is why in the comics Clint started out as a criminal. He was, he was the student of the swordsman.
Yeah,
Um,
it was kind of a bait and switch. Yeah, it was kind of a bait and switch. I feel.
except Jack Duquesne, as we find out, well, in a mid episode when he literally takes on Kate in fencing and just obliterates her, toys with her, and then obliterates her. But at the end, he actually uses a fencing saber like a real. Oh, I can't think of the name of the German university where this was a thing, but like an actual edge saber, but it's a fencing style saber, um,
Yes.
to take out the tracksuit mafia like it was, you know, taking out the trash. Just he is
Honestly,
clearly
that was a mood as well. Because I'm just like, I was watching. I'm like looking at my katana. I'm just like, next time, baby.
yeah. I mean, he is, all credit to whoever the stunt person or whatever it was, or Tony Dalton, who maybe learned some of this stuff, but he was clearly a brilliant swordsman. Now, whether they use that down the road at all, again, in, the Maya or Echo series about Maya, um, who is a big part of this. So Tony Dalton, Vera Farmiga, Tony Dalton is so good as Jack Duquesne.
Yes.
Um, even though he's only in one episode, the wonderful British character actor Simon Callow as Jack's uncle Armand,
Yes.
so good. And of course, Elena Cox as Maya Lopez as Echo, deaf actress, fantastic job. I'm really looking forward to her spin-off series.
Yes.
If for no other reason that it probably is going to bring back Vincent Onofrio as Kingpin. And again, when he shows up, he is Kingpin from Daredevil, except clearly he's Kingpin from the comics too. He's insanely strong and tough. I mean, not
Yes.
Hulk level, but you know, he rips a car door off instead of just
Yep.
using it to
You don't mess with the Kingpin for that reason.
right. Well, even in the Netflix Daredevil, he beats a guy's head to a pulp, smashing it with a car door. But you never get the
Or
impression.
like another, or like the example that fight between him and Matt in the prison.
Yes, he is very strong, but human strong. You never get the impression that he is somehow abnormally strong in the Netflix Daredevil series, and they make it absolutely abundantly clear. And he gets an arrow in the chest and it just goes snap.
Yep.
Oh. So, but and I've read this. D'Onofrio said he and the producers and the directors they wanted to make it absolutely clear that this Kingpin was as much as possible the Kingpin from Daredevil. So the mannerisms are the same, the way he treated it as a disturbed and lost child in a man's body, all of that is exactly the same. He just happens to be a lot tougher.
I did want to note one thing since we're talking about the correlation between like Marvel TV and MCU, and now this MCU show projects they're doing. There was they retconned the retcon they did, and the final episode had me kind of just like, Clint's wife.
Oh yeah. I know it's a spoiler chat, but I don't know if I necessarily want to spoil that because it doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with any plot. It's just kind of an Easter egg reveal.
Yeah, that's why I'm not naming names.
Yeah, let's just leave that there. Yeah, I'm not even going to get as to why it's important as part of the ongoing challenge that Clint starts out right in the first episode facing. So yeah, but if you're an MCU fan or a Marvel Comics fan or any kind, that's worth watching just for that one little reveal at the end. It's like, oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yes.
But so anyway, cast. I got to get through this because we're cast. Everybody else, the Polish and Russian actors that they got to play the only two guys in the Tracksuit Mafia who ever really talk, Ivan and Tomas, are excellent. Including Tomas getting advice from Kate on how to deal with his girlfriend and musical choices.
And then the rap, and then like how they ended that whole arc.
Yep. They bring it all around. It's really good. And the kids. So the Clint and Laura's children are played by the same child actors that played them in Endgame.
Nice.
And that was just such a nice touch. Like, all right, cool. And whoever that kid that plays Armand the Fourth, which would make him Jack's nephew, he's going places. That kid is just a hoot.
Wet yourself.
He's the kid that should have been in Sweet Home Alone or whatever the hell they called that. The most recent, the Home Alone, follow up that they just made.
Yeah. Let's not spoil the movie with that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, thank you. Good point. So, what else? I love the writing. I love the fact that while it has that Matt Fraction, David Aja sort of lighter tone with a lot of wonderful comedy, and you know what? Also, Lucky the Pizza Dog.
Oh yes, Pizza Dog.
So good. Also from the comic, introduced in almost exactly the same way. They do a better. He's actually hit by a car in the comic, and I'm sure they didn't want to portray that trauma to people in the TV show. So Kate rescues him before he's hit by the car.
CGI that they use for his eye.
Yes, I would assume so. I don't know. I haven't looked up a picture of the actual actor dog.
Oh no, I saw I saw some BTS stuff.
Okay.
And he has both eyes.
All right. Cool. Um, so yeah, so that comedy, but then where Clint is in his head is clearly still a very tragic place after the death of Natasha. Um,
One of his best friends.
Absolutely one of his best friends. In another life, probably a lover. Um, but both of them were in different situations at every given time where that might have happened, as far as we know. Um, and
I was so grateful that they never went that route, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful to see the two of them. A man and a woman, just who could have absolutely been, you know, very intimate with each other, just really deeply good friends. Um,
I wish James Gunn would learn that.
yeah, well, I think it depends on the character. You know. Anyway, let's not get into that. So I think what I was getting at is that so they move from this wonderful humor into dealing with Clint's still essentially PTSD, and so very sad, tragic moments. Um, and all of that being again, this is a spoiler for the end of Black Widow, but that's the reason why Yelena's there. She is there to kill Clint. Um, and it's really solid writing all around. They know what to take, when to add new people. The larpers,
Yes.
turning Grills into one of a member of a group of larpers that help them out is just top notch. Grills in the comics is Micro is every other chubby nerd, that street level heroes almost always have in their back pocket. Punisher has Micro. The Matt Fraction version of Hawkeye had Grills. Here, he's a tall, lanky, fairly athletic, complete nerd, black dude in a LARPing group, and it's like,
I have to talk about that because his portrayal made me so happy because one thing that I growing up in the 90s, I dealt with I saw so many portrayals of black nerds that just they were like, I consider Steve Urkel to be the progenitor of Big Bang Theory.
Yep.
And Grills' character was the anti-Urkel for me.
Yep.
Like, he wasn't just like an obnoxious, spazzy dork. Yep. Like, yeah, he had his interests, he had his hobbies, but he was a normal guy at the end of the day.
Yeah. And if you look at, even in pop culture or music culture, MF Doom, Mega Ran, I mean, there are some absolutely outstanding examples of super nerdy, incredibly talented, and the nerdness right out there in your face, black people out. And it's wonderful to see that representation as opposed to Steve freaking Urkel. And so I'm so glad that they did that with Grills. Frankly, it's like, yeah, I've got so many nerdy black friends that are just like this dude. I'm like,
yes,
well done. So the writing is fantastic. The cinematography is really solid. The direction is good. It's nothing outstanding. Even the fight choreography is good, but not outstanding.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, I've read that this had a budget of like $25 million an episode. And an awful lot of that could have
been
macaroni. It's a lot of macaroni. That's a lot of macaroni.
No pun intended.
A lot of that could very well be the the special effects that would be required to do all this stuff in New York when you can't literally bring down the tree in Rockefeller Center. Things like that. But you could have maybe jacked up the action choreography a little bit. You set up that Kate Bishop is this fantastic martial artist and gymnast and acrobat. You don't use that nearly enough. Um, they do a pretty good job of Clint has been around the block enough that when he fights in the most efficient way he possibly can.
Yes.
And they continue with that. It's really good. And the trick arrows, finally, real trick arrows.
Not just explosions.
Right, not just explosions or just thumb drives or whatever the heck
The Pym arrow is probably my favorite.
The Pym arrow, the acid arrow, the taser arrows, the taser wrap bolo arrows.
Yes, I was gonna say.
Oh, so cool. Anyway, we've ranted enough. It's wonderful. Byron, since it's part of the show, we got to talk about it. Dislikes?
Yeah. I wish it was longer, honestly.
Bingo.
I would have loved more of it. It definitely, like I said, the jokes definitely didn't overstay their welcome, but that doesn't mean every joke hit the way it should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's comedy. That's comedy's subjective.
Yep.
Like nothing really sticks out to me in that regard, but
I would say the one thing that I think missed the biggest whiff in all of the funny stuff that was around the LARPing and so on, when it finally got to Renner as Clint, accepting the fact that he's basically just going to let himself get the snot beat out of him. I'm not really, but look like it, so he can get their good graces and get what he needs out of the LARPers when he first meets them.
Mm-hmm.
Everything up to that was pretty funny, and then that last little bit was like, I get what they're going with this. Clint is just really done with this shit.
Yep.
But that could be played in a funnier manner than what they did.
Another kid is like this is more of a nitpick, but when Kate's drawing the costume out and she does like the classic mask on the picture, that reminded me of the post-credit scene from the Wolverine. That really did. And I'm just like, why are you doing this to me, Marvel?
Okay, I get the point. I don't think it was that horrifying and disturbing.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't that. Yeah, you know what it reminded me of? That scene in the Devil May Cry failed reboot, where like Dante walks by the mirror with he had black hair in the failed reboot, and a white wig on his head, like landed on his head. And he's just like, not in a million years. That's exactly what that scene reminded me of, and I'm just like,
I get it. They did a similar thing with the first or second episode of Supergirl, where
oh yes, it was the first episode.
The first episode where she's trying on all sorts of different costumes, including like the booty shorts one, and it's like, nope. And it's like, all right, yes. I get it. That's pretty funny, and it's a great Easter egg for all of us who've been Supergirl fans for decades. So
the mid-2000s costume.
Yeah. Charity Campbell, welcome to the chat over there on YouTube. I'm not really sure what that is, but hey, we're spoiling Hawkeye. So if you've seen it, yeah, and you don't mind the spoilers, hang around. If not, probably should be watching something else until you have seen it.
Maybe Hawkeye.
Exactly, like Hawkeye. Yeah, we're not getting a lot of chat tonight, and that's not really terribly surprising. It is, in fact, the night before
New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Any other dislikes?
Not really. Again, nitpicks mostly.
I don't really have any dislikes that I can say, again, other than stuff that you've already talked on. There are sometimes when the comedy just kind of misses. I've already mentioned that there's sometimes when the action is not as sharp as it should be.
Yeah. No fights stuck out. None of the fights stuck out to me at all.
Except maybe the end. And again, because both Clint and Kate are using as many trick arrows as they can, and
Yes.
are just taking out tracksuit mafia guys left and right.
But none of the hand-to-hand stuff stuck out to me.
But yes, none of the. Yelena's fight on the roof with Kate and then later with Clint was probably the best hand to hand.
Yeah.
But the most impactful and cheer moment is Jack and that sword. In the last
Yes.
episode, watching a guy who really knows how to use a sword just mow through people as a European style saber fencer.
Next time, baby.
Yeah, yeah,
Next time.
exactly. I would do the same, except I'm not in my home, so all of the X number of swords hanging on my wall are just, it's like, no, not here. Um, and that's pretty much it. I have no criticism of the writing. Uh, I've
There was a
read,
lot of love put into this.
yes, I've read one critic's response where he thought that it was too much of a story about setting up Kate Bishop and Yelena and their futures in the MCU, but it doesn't stop Clint's future. It ends with Kate living with the Bartons. So if it's Kate's story going forward, the Bartons are going to be part of it. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
it's there. Um, and I doubt that Renner is signing off. There's just no chance. That
He's put too much work into that role.
yeah, and he's too good at it. So
Maybe one day he'll pass the career down.
I think as a major part of the MCU, I think he has. I think this is the all right. For the most part, we're going to see a lot more of Kate Bishop Hawkeye than we are going to see of Clint Barton Hawkeye going forward. But,
I mean, they're totally not going to do the Young Avengers.
of course they are. I mean, how many of them do we already have? We've got Elijah Bradley, Patriot. We've got Ms. Marvel.
America Chavez.
Have we seen America Chavez yet?
We won't see her until next year, but she was in the Doctor Strange trailer, though.
Right. So yes, we will see her eventually. But the ones that have already seen, Kate Bishop, a kid Loki in Loki, whether or not that's the kid Loki we use or not. And we haven't seen him yet, so we'll put this one. But we've seen, a version of Kang, and there is a version of Kang, a teenage version of Kang that is in the Young Avengers. And Cassie Lang. So we've seen six.
And don't forget, Speed and Wiccan.
Speed and Wiccan. We have seen 8 of the members of the Young Avengers already in the MCU, with the understanding that 2 more are coming. Young Avengers is happening. Whatever they call it, whether they call it Avengers, Next Avengers,
Next Avengers.
Yeah.
Please don't call them Future Avengers.
Yeah, no, that would be because it's not the future. Well, it is, since it's always now going to be at least a couple of years in the future because of the time jump of Endgame. Anyway, so that's, I don't really have any other dislikes. Tone, message. What did this tell you textually and subtextually, Byron?
Our past doesn't define us. Like, our mistakes don't define us. Like, that's been, like, ever since Endgame, that's been a big part of Clint's arc.
Yep.
Is that he's done a lot of things that he's not proud of, and he can never wipe that off his ledger.
Yep.
Actually, you can probably say, I think you can say that from the very start. His arc has been like that, just like moving forward. Like, it's almost like he inherited that from Natasha. Like, he inherited that weight.
Yep.
And meeting Kate has gave him the push he needed to finally cast it aside.
Yeah. That was essentially a Bucky's story and motivation in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a solid theme coming out of this show.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think in addition to that, so tonally, it is more like Ant-Man as far as being more of a lighthearted show. Again, because of the Matt Fraction influence, while still being, and I don't know, is this just an logical outflow of Endgame? But why is every MCU property since Endgame been primarily about grief? You know,
Maybe
WandaVision.
it's just the time that we're in. Maybe it's just times that we're in.
It could be that. I mean, WandaVision, Far From Home,
Yeah.
was all about missing Tony. Um, Falcon and the Winter Soldier about missing Steve. And
Yeah.
while it's not grief in the sense of loss, it's still a sense of loss. He is not a part of their lives anymore.
And you can say the same thing about Loki to an extent. Losing his raise on the Tra.
Yes, yeah. Loki lost Asgard. He lost the thing that he has been. His whole life has been defined as being seeking the leadership of that one thing, and it's gone.
And more than that, it was just like you found out that his existence was a drop in the bucket of something greater, and it humbled him so much.
Yeah. Now that's not necessarily grief, but grief over the fact that he discovers, because he's Loki from a different timeline, that his mother's dead. So yeah, all of the MCU, and of course this you've got Clint still dealing with the grief of the loss of Natasha, and
I mean, you could also say, what if?
No, well, yes. So probably the most important story of What If was the Doctor Strange one, and that is all about grief. And in fact, it's about how grieving too much can ruin the universe. So yeah, it's interesting that the MCU has had that as like a through line through everything so far. Multiverse of Madness is probably not going to be any different because we know that Wanda is a huge part of that. So, yeah. So I think in addition to the theme
Strange
of
Supreme.
the past doesn't have to define you, the theme of grief and how you deal with it, those are the two major themes of this show.
Letting go of grief, definitely.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's the important thing. The lesson is you've got to let go of it, or you've got to accept it and then move through it. Otherwise, very, very bad things happen.
Like you become a criminal mastermind under your children's nose.
Well, I mean, look at Kate. Kate took her grief about her father's death and turned it into becoming, this super overachiever wannabe hero, and her mom took it and became a criminal. So,
like Maya is another good example as well. Taking so blinded by her grief that she couldn't that she was dead set on what was essentially a rumor.
Right. Yeah. So it's grief is just it's Marvel's thing these days for some reason. Anyway, Byron, recommendation and scale of 1 to 10. Where does this sit?
Hell yeah, I'm going to recommend it. Like, was that even a doubt? Was there even a doubt?
Yeah.
I'm going to say a 9.5 out of 10.
Wow, that's a
couple blemishes, but like I said, the hand-to-hand stuff didn't really impress me. A couple of jokes didn't land. But I enjoyed the ride.
Yeah. So yes, strong recommendation from me as well. You do have to be enough of an MCU fan to really have seen Endgame at least to be able to get this. Ideally, the first Avengers movie, but they sort of answer that with the scene at the beginning You don't really need to have seen it. It's just going to be a lot more impactful if you've seen the first Avengers movie. Um, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, which for me is high praise. I don't do 10 out of 10. You've got to literally make me, laugh, cry, do every emotion in the planet, and want to rewatch it instantly. You know, um, 10 out of 10 for me is Band of Brothers is a 10 out of 10. Um, there's not a lot that's out there that rises to that level. Um, and I would bring it down from, say, a 9 out of 10 because of it's too short.
Yeah.
It really, it's not bad. They don't rush through things that need more, and make it a problem. They just don't allow enough time for things to grow even better, which I think was, and the action choreography and the fairly simplistic direction. So I'm going to bring it an 8 out of 10. Still, super strong recommendation though. You should absolutely go watch it, if for no other reason that you'll want to know where Kate Bishop came from when the next whatever Avengers happens, because it's gonna happen. All right, folks, that's it for our show. Thank you all for tuning in. Everybody, last show of the year. Everybody, please have a very safe and very happy New Year. If you're doing anything on New Year's Eve, remember, of course, the usual designated driver, Uber, Lyft, whatever. Don't drink and drive. Don't go out into a public group without a mask. Don't go out in a public group at all, I would say. But if you are, make it an N95 mask. They're more available now than ever.
I want to add to that real quick. One of our longtime contributors just contracted Omicron, and for anyone watching this who thinks that this is a joke, who thinks that this is not that serious, I assure you it is. And the fact that it hits home to us like that, I hope those of you who are watching this are taking this seriously.
Yep.
Everything that Rodney's saying, do not mess around with this. We need to get this under control.
Yep. If you're vaccinated, and particularly if you got a booster, but if you're just double vaccinated, breakthrough cases happen, of course. That's what Omicron is all about. And if you're vaccinated, they are, as a rule, not particularly serious. I mean, like winter head cold, not serious. Mm-hmm. If you are not vaccinated, it's just like the original version or Delta or whatever, And unfortunately, younger people are the ones that are least vaccinated out there, and there are kids and teenagers are the ones that are filling up the hospitals and dying. So, please take this seriously. Please be safe if you're going out. But you know what? Stay at home. Watch the fireworks. Have a drink or two. Whatever. Have a drink or two with one or two people that are absolutely safe. That's fine. And if you decide to go out and you want to, be in a crowded environment, whether it's outside or inside, well, hey, if you're here in Massachusetts, or particularly in Boston, bring that Vax card, because you ain't getting into nothing without that Vax card. And New York City as well. So anyway, we do this at the end of every show. We rant about this, and I'm sorry, but it's important. We do not want you people to get ill. And we really don't want you to die. We want you to be at the next conventions that we're going to go to. Assuming they happen in 2022. So, folks, stay safe. We'll see you at an upcoming show. And enjoy your New Year's, however you celebrate it. Good night, and bye-bye.
See you.